Okay, so let's begin. Welcome everyone to our Open Doors to Art series. This is our second studio visit of the year in partnership with Curated Tastes. My name is Miret Rodríguez. I am an art historian living in Vancouver. I am the co-founder of Curated Tastes, which is an art mediation company, and chair of the Vancouver Latin American Cultural Center Programming Committee. I am tuning in from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, a place that is also known as Vancouver. And it really is a great honor to be in your company and to have artist Osvaldo Ramirez Castillo with us here today. A few words about Osvaldo before we begin and look at his work in depth. Osvaldo is originally from El Salvador. In 1989, he immigrated to Canada at age 11 during a time when Salvador continued to experience a civil war. He is a graduate of the Ontario College of Art and Design, obtaining this degree in 2001, and obtained his MFA degree at Concordia University in 2008. He has exhibited extensively across Canada and internationally in venues such as the International Print Center in New York, the Southern Alberta Art Gallery, MAI, Montréal Arts Interculturels, La Halle Saint-Pierre in Paris, at Marte, Museo de Arte de El Salvador in Salvador, and currently at our very own Vancouver Art Gallery. We really want to make a special mention to the Vancouver Art Gallery as they warmly opened their doors to the exhibition Stories That Animate Us, where curator Zoe Chan walked us through the current exhibitions at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Later on, we will share with you a snippet of that visit in this call. Osvaldo, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and for opening the doors of your studio. How are you doing today? Are you enjoying this streak of sunny days?
Hi, Miret. Hi, everyone. I want to say thanks for signing up to hear me talk about my work and share my thoughts about my body of work. I'm doing well, Miret. Thanks, VLACC, for allowing me the space to talk about my work again. It's hard to be in the studio on days like today. In fact, this past week has been a bit challenging for me because it's been so wonderful outside. Yeah, thank you for the introduction.
Of course, Osvaldo. Well, let's talk more about you, about your work, about the work that's currently exhibited at the Vancouver Gallery. But let's go back a little bit. Many of us here, many of us following the activities of VLACC, where we want to get a better understanding of Latin American arts and culture. And I'm wondering if this is also your case. I'm wondering what it means to be Latin to you, but especially what it means to be a Latin American artist in Canada to you.
Well, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Can everyone listen okay, by the way? I'm concerned that people... Okay. Well, it's an interesting question because I've kind of moved on from that question to the point where I don't think about it as much anymore. At the beginning, I did think about it a lot. And for me, what that means is just simply exploring my personal history and inside the context of the events that happened in my childhood, growing up in El Salvador. So personal history in the context of collective memory, right? And what that means and how that would translate visually. But I also, it's a very political question, I find. What does being a Latin American artist in Canada mean to me? Another way to look at that would be to just flip that definition around and say, as a Canadian artist, born in El Salvador or originally from El Salvador, I feel like there's a lack of visibility of Latin American art in the Canadian art scene. in the Canadian art world, I suppose. I feel like the Canadian narrative largely forgets to involve the work of Latin American artists, diaspora across Canada, right? There's a lack of inclusion, I believe, and quite frankly, there is underrepresentation, and it feels like it's changing a little bit now, and it has for the past a few years, but especially now, I think I just hope that we're more included as part of the conversation. I mean, what does it mean to, what is Canadian art anyways these days? If you really think about that. So that's what I have to share around that. Yeah.
Thank you, Osvaldo. Yes, this is definitely a question that many of us are questioning, and it's an ongoing question. So hopefully after today's call, we will all get a portion and a snippet to answer that. Of course, it's a very complex one, but thank you for your input. So Osvaldo,
Yeah.
before we get into your work, I want to invite everyone here to take a look at your work without any sort of context. Just approach your artwork on its own. So this is where I'm going to ask everyone in the audience to come close to your screens. I am going to show you a series of works of Osvaldo's. And I'm please going to ask you to grab either your phone or some pen and paper and look at the works and write a list of thoughts, feelings, or anything else that comes to mind when you're looking at Osvaldo's work. So I'm just going to give you a few seconds to get that sorted. And I'm going to start just going through some images and just get really close and let's look at this together. I will, at the end of me going through these images, I will invite you into breakout rooms to discuss with other people. So let's give it a go. Who is ready? You can just go like this with your hands so I know you're ready. Okay, ready? We're ready. All right, let's do this. Okay, so just write down anything that comes to mind. What are you looking at? Do you have any sort of, are there any emotions or questions when you see these works? Anything that comes to mind, no judgments. I will continue flipping through the images. At the end, we will share our thoughts. Here is the second image. Moving on to the third. Next one. Next. And the last one. All right. So it is now time to meet two other people in a breakout room. I am going to invite you, and you can decline or participate. You should be receiving an invitation now, and that will take you to a separate room. And we will meet you here in 5 minutes. So at 5:18.
That sounds much better. Thanks, Miret. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Great. So how did you do? Did you enjoy it? Who would like to take over the mic and maybe share some of your comments? What did you see in Osvaldo's work? If you are shy to take the microphone, you are also welcome to type anything, any observations on the chat.
Hi, this is Juan Contreras.
Hi, Juan. How are you doing?
Good. Well, I see in Osvaldo the representation, the same thing. I live in Colombia for many years. I saw, how to say in Spanish, pesadilla.
Nightmare.
It's a nightmare, yeah. The first three painting, yes, that's the nightmare that we live and still living with massacres, and we understand more that than probably many people. And I have a question, Osvaldo, is about the painting that you have with the serpent, with the vibora. It's on, why this representation? What do you want to achieve with that?
I don't know what I wanted to achieve, but I appreciate the question, and I can only give you, I can just give you an attempt to answer that question. Okay, so inside the mouth of the serpent, you have two figures, three. One looks like an effigy, but two are basically of the figures are symbolic of the MS-13. These are the gang members that are a byproduct of the civil war that we had, which these are characters in our society that are heavily ingrained in the fabric of El Salvador society now. So this is a post-war social issue that we have, and they live off ransom, murder, drug trafficking, and kidnapping. So it's one of those subconscious things that happens in the creative process where you just merge different elements. Like I was thinking of the serpent because I am very much motivated to use imagery sourced from pre-Hispanic culture. And I was thinking about mythology specifically, and the god Quetzalcoatl, which is one of the pantheon gods in the Americas. It's one of the creation gods in the Americas, and this piece is actually called Hijos de Quetzalcoatl, Quetzalcoatl's children. And so I was just playing with different narratives, historical, mythological, cultural narratives. I shared earlier in the breakout room that I do like to mix hybrid imagery. I like to explore aspects of popular culture, creating my own mythology in a way, personal mythology, by mixing just aspects. By aspects, I mean pictorial aspects or stories taken from our collective memory, right? Like Salvadorian popular folklore, characters that come out of our society, and the influence of stylistically Western art history. I mean, these characters are pretty much borrowed from photographs, and the style is somewhat realistic. So I am mixing a lot of the things into the mix And whereas your question, Juan, sounds, you know, to me, it's very interesting, but it's really hard to answer because I can give you an approximation to an answer. And that's,
I understand, yes.
I believe the best I can do, but does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Actually, one quick comment. When I saw the painting the first time, just as a quick look, it looks for me like from India or Sri Lanka mythology for the colors and the representation, but looking just very fast, no in details. Now you give a very profound meaning different. Now I cannot go back to seeing another way. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Well, no,
thank you so much.
It's such a wonderful reading. That I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. This is really what we're trying to encourage with this activity. I don't know if there's anyone else from another group that would like to share some general comments about Osvaldo's work that you discussed with your group. If there are no further comments, we can perhaps now invite Osvaldo to give us an insight into his work, which is very complex and has changed throughout the years. The image that you see on view is one of his latest pieces that are currently, it's a very large drawing, actually. It's quite magnificent, and we'd like to invite you to go see it in person at the Vancouver Art Gallery. And Osvaldo, just to kind of transition into what you can give us more an introduction of your work, the only kind of comment I would like to, or rather question, is this kind of in your very recent body of work at the Vancouver Art Gallery, we really see this precarious balance between objects of violence, perhaps, for example, this gun. But we also see that contrasted with perhaps images of beauty, such as flowers or growth, right? And we see that also in the colors. So we see the black and whites, and we also see the color pencils. So I would like to ask you what you're trying to achieve, what these formal resources help you achieve, this kind of contrast of the imagery and also of the color.
Thanks, Miret. I appreciate the question. So just to just get things straight right now, this is the presentation part where I present my work. Okay, from the beginning, right?
Yeah, sure. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know if I should answer your question first or I should answer it later. But I'll begin.
Wish.
Okay. Believe me, I'll keep your question in mind because that'll be answered more towards the end. So, so my work overall, in general, my body of work, the things that I've done over the past, I don't know, 15, 20 plus years now, is all about collective memory and identity, historical trauma. And by that, I mean collective and individual stories of loss and violence. So I am dealing with the legacy and impact of violence as well. And also, I like to touch on the cultural memory aspect, in other words, pre-Hispanic storytelling seen through mythology, Salvadoran popular folklore, and so on. Next, by the way, if you can, yeah. But I also I've been greatly influenced by Western art history, like medieval bestiaries. I don't know if you guys are aware of medieval, engravings, like the likes of Albert Dürer or Hieronymus Bosch, where they seem to be really detail obsessed for some reason. I really took that to heart. I really like drawing. Next, and So I'm also aesthetically the kind of storytelling that I like to make, create, or just make up as I go along is totally hybrid. I'm including, aspects of Salvadoran popular folklore, like symbolically, like I like aspects of the kitsch in Latin America, but also including motifs of indigenous pre-Hispanic cultures, right? Like you'll see a lot of animal masks and very and the kind of regalia that characters wear during street art performances or public dance performances. That makes Roman Catholic imagery or iconography with the type of regalia that looks just completely made up, and it's a mixture of indigenous origins and kitsch culture, right? Or popular folklore, really. Let's move on to the next one. In fact, from now on, Miret, can you just rotate them every like 30 to 40 seconds? Thank you. So those are sources of inspiration that I rework in my overall body of work, and that's something that I've engaged with, over the years. You'll see the inherent violence in my work too. This one in particular is the one before. It was, yeah, that one. It just talks about the shoes that were the only way to identify the missing or the unaccounted dead during the Civil War, where sometimes they would find these mass graves full of shoes, right? And so I'm kind of like balancing out tragedy or catastrophe with beauty. I'm mixing a lot of flower motif or vegetation, plant life coming out of soldiers' uniforms. Again, this one in particular is inspired by pre-Hispanic masks that are used in dance festivals, specifically in Holy Week, or patron saint celebrations in local towns across the country. And these gatherings happen all over the Americas, right? In Central America, each small town pays tribute to their local patron saint. So, and these are just manifestations that really inspire my work to just explore the pictorial aspect of it. I really like the expression of these popular art form expressions, really. That's, yeah. This one is more telling of that. As you can see, just a hybridity of characters in the mix. These are works on paper, so they're drawings ranging from small to very large. My paper of choice is Mylar. It's the kind of paper that allows me to work both sides of the sheet. The nature of the paper is semi-transparent, semi-opaque, and my background as a printmaker allows me to think in layers, which is consistent to the different narratives that collide in my compositions, right? So I use a variety of things. Like, what do I use? Pencil crayons, as simple as that. They're color pencil crayons and acrylic ink. What else? Coffee, anything that sticks to paper.
You also make use of collage, is that right?
That's right. Thank you for reminding me. Sometimes I have gaps in my memory. I have gaps in explaining my practice. Like there is a lot of collage in these works, and it's very seamless. But if you get up close to the work, you'll see that it's been pasted on there. So I like drawing on the paper and then cutting them or splicing them and then recollaging them along the paper surface and just playing with the positioning of these different pieces. So I have like a collection of what it looks like bits and pieces of like cut out drawings, and I never throw them away. I always go back to them and reuse them for whatever piece I'm working on at the moment. And the way I work is quite organic. I work on 3 or 4, sometimes 5 pieces at a time, and they all feed off each other. They all have a conversation with one another. It drives me a bit crazy, actually, to just not know when to actually finish one single piece, but they get done anyway.
So for example, Osvaldo, sorry to interrupt you, just to kind of get into that, when we look at this piece as an example, it seems as if this is one drawing, as if you are working graphite above some sort of ink, that kind of Byzantine halo we see there. But when you look at these works up close, these kind of wooden beams there, this is collage, right? And
yeah, that's right. And now I think because of this image that's being presented here, I can actually start answering your question, Miret. So I lately, maybe for the past 2, 3, 4 years, perhaps, I been looking for a language for reconciliation, or what that looks like. Anything pointing towards healing, which is why you see in the next few drawings that you'll see, you'll have characters with plant life or vegetation or flowers protruding out of their torsos. And I've also replaced limbs with sticks, and these characters are being, though they look fragmented, they are supported by these sticks. At the same time, their limbs have been cut off, yet there is an element of growth or rejuvenation or regeneration happening. And you'll see a lot of that in my later works. In fact, a lot of the stuff that's on exhibition at the Vancouver Art Gallery shows that. I'm also sourcing a lot of ruins or buildings in the state of collapse or dilapidated structures. Or I like mining the internet for like rubble, like destroyed buildings and stuff. And just balancing that out with elements of beauty or regeneration. So these are the ideas that I've been thinking about. Everything about my work has to do with the construction of memory. Everything has to do with what that looks like, or what that could look like, by having a conversation with ideas around healing and reconciliation. I want to see how that would offset the inherent violence that you see in my work. So what else can I? So another thing, I do go back home every now and then, and every time I do a lot of field research, right? It's not enough for me to just research stuff online or on the internet, or through images or through pictures, or sources that would inform my work. It's also important to go out into the field and talk to people. Like every time I go back, I talk to my family and I hear secondhand stories about their memories and what they went through during the war. But also it's important to to just kind of like relive aspects of our cultural memory as well. And yeah, I'm also just interested in personal mythology, really. Just I think every time you remember something, I mean, scientists have speak about this in their research. This came out not too long ago, but you know, memory is a lot more malleable. Every time you remember an incident or an event or a memory of anything, it changes over time. And that's what my work is about too. Just like, you know, the shifting ebb and flow of memory. Like every time I remember a specific memory, there's something else that I add to that remembering, right? To that act of memory work. So yeah, these are all collage drawings. Though the first few images that I showed you at the very beginning, they were like drawn straight on the paper, and the collage thing just came about maybe like, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. But if you can keep showing the later ones, Miret, that would be great, actually.
So I believe that these were the last ones. So just to kind of illustrate to people and guide them, these last images here that we see this kind of contrast of plants.
There were some installation stuff too. There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the last four, you saw like an enclosure. It was a garden. If you can go back to, yeah. Again, the shoes, right? Kind of like recently excavated shoes coming out of the ground. And this is an installation that I did in Montreal as part of a 2-person show. And I decided to do an enclosure, a chain link fence enclosure. And I just filled the inside with soil, flowers, branches or twigs and moss. And also pieces of paper hanging on a clothesline. And again, this speaks to you know, our collective memory, but also it's a piece that hits closer to home too. It's personal it speaks to family history inside the context of collective memory and the memory of loss during the Civil War as well. So this was actually a pretty big piece. And this is also, through the years, I've done some floor drawings, and these are sand drawings, there's sand in there, but there's also sawdust, and that's partly inspired by, you know, the I lost my words there. These are basically inspired by the sand drawings during religious festivities back home. In fact, all over, you know, Central America and Mexico, you have like these elaborately made designs out on the street or out in public, to usually during a Roman Catholic event. And it's filled with you know, Roman Catholic iconography or imagery, but I've decided to do my own projects, and this one is basically an image of the US-Mexico border wall, and this one specifically was made in Santa Fe, New Mexico during an artist residency in 2016, and the idea was that during the opening night, people were allowed to walk across this image and deface it. And toward the end of the opening night, this image was actually completely gone. So the image of the border wall was completely erased. And I believe there's one more after this. And yeah, another sand drawing that I did recently. Again, this is the pandillero, or the gang member, a very reviled character in El Salvador. They're, you know, sort of like the equivalent of the cartels in Mexico or something like that, where they live off drug trafficking, murder, and so on. But I'm not going to get into their story too much. But here I've decided to show him as a deity, you know, with a halo behind them. And again, I'm thinking of ideas around healing. I feel like these characters deserve our compassion as well, right? So I'm thinking of usually a figure that's reviled, I've decided to just deify.
Wonderful.
So,
Thank you so much, Osvaldo. Thank you for giving us that insight into your earlier work and latest work. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I'm done. Thank you, Miret. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, obviously, we're going to continue. We still have time. And Osvaldo, I want to introduce everyone in the audience to your latest works. Perhaps some of you have seen them already, but for the ones that haven't, we met with curator Zoe Chan at the Vancouver Art Gallery about a month ago. And she introduced the exhibition Stories That Animate Us, which is a group exhibition where your works are exhibited, Osvaldo. They are, in fact, right in front of Los Desastres de la Guerra of Goya, The Disasters of War by Goya. I would like to invite everyone now to see a little snippet of that exhibition visit where curator Zoe Chan is going to introduce the exhibition for us. And just to note, because this is a group exhibition, you will be seeing Zoe standing in front of an artwork that is not by Osvaldo, but by another artist whose name is Howie Choi. So just kind of to bear that in mind. And this exhibition is on until, I believe, September the 6th. I'm standing next to Zoe Chen. She is the assistant curator at the Vancouver Art Gallery and the curator of the exhibition, The Stories That Animate Us. We are thrilled to be in her company, so she can give us a little bit of insight into the exhibition. So Zoe, could you please tell us a little bit about the exhibition, The Stories That Animate Us?
Sure. So this is an exhibition that I co-curated with my colleague, the interim chief curator, Diana Frundle. So in our project, we wanted to use works from our collection, but also animations and drawings by local artists. Another theme that developed that was very strong was the ideas of stories and presenting just a range of stories, a range of storytelling techniques, perspectives, aesthetics from just like a range of different artists.
So now we're obviously very interested in knowing a little bit of the backstory of how you heard about Osvaldo's work, you know, how he came to mind, and he was a must for this exhibition. Mm-hmm. We were also kind of just talking about before about the fact that as the majority of our public is very interested in Latin cultures. Most of us are either Hispanic or Latin. And for us to have the work of Osvaldo included in such exhibition and to be in such a center in Vancouver, it really does feel as an effort of inclusion, right? And I think also as an individual, I feel particularly touched and also, have to say, reached and also included myself as public to see Latin American artists being heard and given such a space. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did Osvaldo come to mind? How does his work speak to the other works in this room?
Okay, well, your question brings up so many things. Well, my co-curator, Diana Frundle, she had been following Osvaldo's work since he moved here, I guess in 2015. Am I right? But I actually know Osvaldo from when we were both living in Montreal, and we worked together on an exhibition called Personal Mythologies that we presented at a center called the MAI, Montréal Art Interculturel. And this was a project with Osvaldo, so I've really been following his career since that exhibition was from 2012. So when I moved here to Vancouver, of course, he's always been in my, in my mind. And when I started working on this project, Diana had already been thinking of him. His work really embodies our interest in storytelling, but also using drawing and animation. But of course, what is especially interesting, I think, about his work is how he's has been cultivating and developing this hybrid style that is bringing in references to Salvadoran folklore, to Mayan iconographies, Mexican graphic art traditions, but also references to works, European artists like Goya, which we also have his work in conversation with. In terms of representation that you mentioned, I think that it's important to show within the Vancouver context, within the context of BC, and also within the context of Canada, that there's a range of different perspectives. I think it's important not only for Latin or Hispanic communities, but also for the culture at large. We really wanted just to have a diversity of aesthetics and perspectives, and we were kind of only limited by space, time, and budget. But of course, we hoped that our focus on stories, which I think is a theme that resonates with a lot of different people, that despite the specificity of what Osvaldo is bringing from his perspective, but also looking at his own experiences as an immigrant and looking at the civil war in El Salvador, for example, that all people from different backgrounds can also find something in there that they can relate to.
Okay, so thank you for, all right, so sharing this with us. So this is just an invitation and a little bit of insight of how Osvaldo's work is included in this exhibition. And now I really would like to hand over the floor to you, noting our time. So if you have any questions for Osvaldo, please raise your hand, please unmute yourself, or go ahead and type your question in the chat and we will help you deliver your question.
I have a question. Can you hear me? I'm Lynn, but I'm not appearing on the screen because I don't know how to. This is a rather simplistic question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Osvaldo, okay, I went to the exhibition Stories and Animators, and when I walked into that room and saw your work, I knew, I was excited. I knew this was an artist I wanted to know more about, but I had never heard of you until that day. So I took down your name and I went home and I Googled you. And I carefully wrote down, and I say it's rather simplistic, my question, Osvaldo Ramirez Castillo. And the stuff came up showing me what you'd achieved, etc. Now, on today's presentation, I only see you being referred to as Osvaldo Ramirez. Perhaps it's my lack of knowledge of Latin American names, but I've been shooting off emails to people all around the world saying, if you don't know this artist, you will. But I've been given the 3 names. So what are you calling yourself for your artistic career?
It's my full name, Osvaldo Ramirez Castillo. So that's what I go for. Yeah.
Okay, so I was right in telling. I'm like, oh, I've told all these people, and I couldn't even get the name right, but I did get the name right.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Either name will appear, I guess, on Google, I suppose.
Well, the full name did appear. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for answering my simplistic question. And again, I just want to say I was so excited to see your work, and congratulations.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. Thanks very much. I'm glad it made an impact on you, positive impact on you. Thank you.
It did. Thank you.
Jairo, I see your hand raised. I will unmute you.
Everyone.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm going to turn on my camera just for a bit. Where am I? Here I am. There you go. I was like an act of magic. I just appeared out of the blue. There you go. Osvaldo, you might not remember me, but I had the pleasure to meet you face to face. There was a time back in the days when we used to be able to see people in person a long time ago. We met in 2019 at an exhibition in downtown in Vancouver. And I was fascinated by your work. So I was looking forward to this presentation today. And I was surprised to find out that now you have installation work that is mostly, we can say, abstract, non-figurative. Even when you were talking about this work with sand, reminded me a little bit of abstract expressionists like Alfaro Siqueiros, or even Jackson Pollock, who used to incorporate sand in his paintings. And there is a lot of controversy about how to visualize trauma. And it seems that you are working in both realms. You know, you are using figuration to give a face to trauma, and you are also working with abstraction. So I guess my question is, how or what do you feel more comfortable with? What strategy do you think is more effective, if that's a valid question, to cope and to negotiate with trauma and with memory? And thank you. It's great to see you. Great to see you again.
I think I remember you, 2019. I think. Oh my God. Thanks, Jairo. I really appreciate that question. Thank you for that. Makes me think about the answer a lot. I bounce back and forth between, I guess, a hybrid figurative style and some abstraction too. It just sort of happens. I think the installation work just calls for that aesthetic to happen. You know, I also partly been influenced by, again, like what I mentioned earlier, the sand making techniques for image making back home, for these giant, you know, sand designs, the sand tapestry designs on the ground, right, that are displayed out in public and for religious festivals, patron saint celebrations, and whatnot. And that style is very, like, it's very, you know, it's a colonial tradition, right? The sand making stuff that was brought from Spain, but like in Central America, like they really made it their own in pictorially in terms of the contrasting colors, right? And they just made up their own, you know, Roman Catholic designs in a very abstract way. And I guess I've been influenced by that. And that's something that, you know, I want to integrate more the style that you see in my drawing work and my work on paper into the floor drawings. And that's something I'm striving for a little more. But it's very difficult because there's a lot of planning and doing these designs on the floor. But in terms of negotiating trauma, I mean, that's just something, you know, I work in a very intuitive sense. It just sort of happens. I don't mean to trivialize, trauma. It's when really my background is something that happened to me, that happened to us. It's based on reality, right? Something that we witnessed collectively. So to me, it doesn't feel like I'm trivializing it just because of personal experience. And I also wanted to say, one more thing. You did mention that, other artists like Jackson Pollock used scent making techniques. Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that he, in a famous documentary, he mentions that
Yeah.
he's trying to incorporate the techniques of the Navajo Indians.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to say also. We have to remember that, a lot of those white Western or European artists took a lot from indigenous cultures, right?
Right.
We are descendants of indigenous peoples. I'm not an indigenous person myself, but we come from indigenous descendants. And I don't feel like, there's no freaking way I'm stealing. It's just something I grew up with, right? But it's fair to say that a lot of Western artists who are heralded as, big names in the art world, even today after they are dead, never credited indigenous artwork for their practice. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Thank you, Jairo.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to catch up with your work and what you are up to. And I'm looking forward to following up on what you're doing and what you will do in the future for sure. And I hope that we can meet again sometime in the near future for sure.
Let's do that. Let's exchange numbers and see what we can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Wonderful. This is great. These are the type of connections that we definitely want to to nurture or kind of instigate. Is there anyone else that has any sort of last comments or question?
There is a question.
There is a question on the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lily. Rocio asks, are you more optimistic for the future of El Salvador with current President Bukele? Oh God. Thank you for the question. It's just hard. It's hard for me to answer that because I don't know how to answer that. I don't feel very optimistic myself, to be honest, about him being the president. Someone who governs through social media is never a good thing in the first place. And this guy, he won the election simply because the two old dinosaur parties, the FMLN and the Arena, have been ruling the country for 25 years, ever since the war stopped or ended, and nothing changed during their, back and forth. And this guy comes along and wins the election out of that disillusionment. He had no political platform whatsoever, no plans for the country, and now he's the president. I don't feel very optimistic about him, but hey, some people say otherwise. Whatever. That's my answer.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Osvaldo, for everything. And thank you again to everyone that joined us. These calls are always they're too short sometimes, and we really do wish to dedicate more time to Osvaldo's work, but this is hopefully just a sort of a first step for you. Please, if you're here, don't forget to follow Osvaldo Ramirez Castillo on his Instagram. You have his sites underneath here as well. And of course, if you are connected online, VLACC is present on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and any of your favorite social media channels. We would like to extend the invitation for our next studio visit with another Latin American artist residing in Vancouver. His name is Manuel Piña. He's an associate professor of visual arts at UBC, and he explores the relationships between power, utopias, history, and the city through photography and video art. We also have a sooner event, a great workshop, a screen printing night with Jaime Lopez happening on April 22 at 6:30 p.m. PDT. So please just register online. And the other one is happening, our Tertulia is happening on April 27th, and we will be discussing what the corrido and the narco corrido are. And that's happening at 5 p.m. PDT. And again, thank you everyone for being here. Please tell your friends about us. Please keep an eye on us. Our programmings are free of charge most of the time, but if you ever feel inclined to support us, we are always happy to take a donation to be able to keep on inviting the wonderful Latin American artists in Canada. So thank you once again to all, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Miret and VLACC for hosting me, for hosting this wonderful conversation. It was my pleasure engaging in conversation with everybody. Thank you, Miret, for being an amazing moderator. And yeah.
Well, apologies for the sound mishaps, but thank you all for your patience. And Osvaldo, we hope to hear more of your work, and we will keep an eye and stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye now.